Right, so I just started recording. In fact, I don't even think it's still straight. I just started recording and then remembered that I hadn't actually changed the camera angle, so it was all like, you know, it'd be portrait when it should be landscape. So that was a pain in the arse. So I've sorted that now. Yeah, check my new gloves out. New RST Tractech gloves. Really like them. They're really lightweight. Give me a lot more dexterity in my fingers now, in my hands, so I'm really chuffed with that. They were quite cheap as well. They only sent me back £54. Feel really good quality. You know, I would have got the Alpine Star stuff, but I'm not a millionaire, so... You know, I saw this topic the other day, and it was originally raised by the Garden Snake, who I watch. You should watch him. He's got a really cool supermoto. Yeah, crazy rider. Yeah, he originally raised this little topic that I like the sound of. It's you know, the whole car motorcycle and the practicalities of it. But mainly his topic was about how practical commuting on or doing long journeys on a supermoto was, and he came to the conclusion that it was, you know, it was doable. I kind of disagree there. I think, you know, going large journeys on any bike, you should either get a big bike, you know, one that's fared and everything like that, or get a bike that's purely designed for long trips. I mean, I'm not saying that this bike here that I'm on wouldn't be able to commute, because that's not true. It could commute, and I know people that have done long trips on it. There's several limiting factors though. There's the tank range. It's only 120 to 130 miles, which, you know, considering a long trip for me is about 250 miles, makes the whole thing a little bit awkward. So that's the first limiting factor. Second thing is, most bikes aren't designed to be ridden, or aren't in that sort of position that they should be ridden for a long time. So this bike would get uncomfortable, and I have driven a long way. I've drove over 200 miles in a day on this, and your legs start to hurt. You know, your chest and your neck, you start to feel it in your neck, where it's because there's nothing between me and the front of the bike. There's no shield. You get nothing. So by the end of the day, you're doing 70 miles an hour constant on the motorways. Your neck hurts, your chest hurts, and it's just generally uncomfortable. So the topic itself, cars versus motorbikes, I think anyone that rides a motorbike will probably agree with me that you can't, I mean, one is not going to cut it for either. I would lay a bet, anyone watching this that rides a motorcycle, full license holder, I'm not talking about restricted license holders, because they get their license a little bit differently to everyone else. I would lay a bet that anyone that owns or holds a full UK biking license also owns a full UK car license. Now, the reason I say that with much certainty is it's a lot more practical. It is so much more practical. There's a lot of dual license holders, and I think it's the best way to go about it, having a dual license. Now, I can understand people that, you know, have gone down the CBT and, you know, saying, oh, biking's the practical way for me, because when you look at it that way, it is the most practical thing you could possibly do. Now, what do I mean by that? There's people like, you know, people that do CBTs and play on the CBTs and ride a 125. Of course, it's going to be financially viable for you, because a full biking license, you have to do lessons, or say, all right, you don't have to do lessons, but you have to have bike hire and a bike test. You could even get away with not even doing the bike hire. Still, it is going to be a lot of money. A CBT here in the UK costs you about £90 here in the southeast. So £90. You can't fail it. If you do sort of fail it, as they say, you get asked to come back for a free day, and then you pass it. So you can't fail it. It's £90, and then you can instantly ride a 125. So that's the initial setup fee. 125s are bloody cheap. They are incredibly cheap here in the UK. You know, you could pick up a cheap 125 for 500 odd quid. So, and that's you could get it cheaper than that. So there is hardly any setup fee. Second of all, fuel cost. 125s guzzle nothing. They do nothing. And, you know, it's kind of obvious why. They got smaller engines and, you know, less weight and all that. So, yeah, financially, they're going to be a better option. However, you know, my last video, that was a time-lapse to Kent. I could not have gone from Hayling Island to Kent, which is, what, 100 and something miles? It's a 2.5 hour ride. I couldn't have driven up there and gone, hey, guys, yeah, I'm here to pick up the windsurfing board. All right, cool, mate. What have you got to put it on? Oh, I'm putting it on my backpack. It's not practical. It is not practical. So there's going to be a hell of a lot of situations where you get that sort of thing. And, you know, I'm a massive thing of getting to biking and stuff like that, but don't do it if it's your sole resource of travel. Most people I know, you know, even when I go to the motorcycle club that I go to with my university, pretty much everyone, I think there's only one guy that I know that owns a motorcycle that doesn't have a UK car license as well. I think that kind of just shows you, you know, the general thing of it is a lot more practical to drive a car than it is to drive a motorbike. You save time on a motorbike, yeah, can be countered with. Although you save that time and you get there earlier than you would in the car, you get there tired, you get there wet, you get there all scruffed up, you look scruffy. You know, it just, there's countering it with it's cheaper on fuel. Yeah, because you can't carry as many people, you can't carry equipment, you can't, you know, bring things back from places. Luggage, you're extremely restricted. Okay, fine, that's cool. You know, it looks good. Yeah, you can't counter that. That's the only thing that you can't counter with a car. You have to spend a hell of a lot more money to get a realistically good looking car and good speed on a car than you do on a motorbike, which I think, you know, is quite obvious to most people. But I'm saying in a lot of cases, there are so many cases where it's impractical to own a motorbike. And, you know, I think that's one of the good things about being a dual license holder. And I'm kind of lucky and I'm thankful at the same time that I invested the money, you know, back a little bit when things weren't so tight in my life, to get the car one first and then get the motorcycle one. I'm much happier riding the motorcycle. I mean, you saw that trip to Kent on the time lapse. If you did watch that, that took me. I was driving for 5 hours in a Renault Clio 1.2 litre Mark II 16 valve. Now I can tell you, the 0 to 60 on that car is sometime this year. There is no thrill in driving it. It pretty much just gets by. Fantastic little nippy car, and it does good on fuel considering it's a, you know, a car. This guy doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. But it's, you know, if I didn't have that there, I would have either had to rely on my parents or relied on a friend to take me all the way to Kent, which is unfair. You know, you don't want to get taken 2 hours by someone, you know, that has no interest in what you're doing just because you decided to get a motorcycle, because then it hits home that you know, the savings that you're making aren't exactly that great because you've got to rely on people, you know, you've got to get all these things done for you. So I think a lot of the time when I read these things, I read these posts where people say, yeah, it's the best practical choice here in the UK, or it's the best practical choice overall. I think it's wrong. I genuinely think it's wrong. And although it's my opinion, you know, it's not something that I'm going, yeah, it's wrong because it's, you know, I have it and so should everyone else. It's not. It's, you know, the facts. You can't carry equipment. You can't carry a lot of people. You can carry one person. And even that could be on a sports bike, you know, it's uncomfortable for the person. So, yeah, they're not perfect and they're not the best way to get around, but they're goddamn fun. And I hope you have a fantastic week, guys. Ride safe and take care.